Okay, it's now time to look at your first assessment, which is the report. Hopefully you should have done a lot of research on the pastel factors, which you obviously will be able to share because all of you should have access to the different wikis. So you should actually be able to use some of the factors that your classmates have collected as an inspiration. Obviously, I don't just want you to use those. I would like you to, do some research as well. And obviously, in order to understand them, you have to do a bit more research as well. Now, what we're going to do first is I'm just going to go through the assessment with you, so that you actually just get an idea. As I said before, please only hand in the criteria with your assessment. So you just need to copy and paste these 2 pages to the front of your assignment, because you're only able to, I think, upload one document, which I only want you to do anyway, because otherwise I have to go back and forth between too many documents. So copy and paste the marketing grid to your report. Don't forget to put your name in there. Also, make sure you stay within your word limit. You're allowed to go 10% over or under. Anything more, I will take marks off. Make sure you cover all this, because this is what I'm marking against. Okay, so explain the factors that affect the macro environment in the hospitality industry. Evaluate the impact of the current trends and contemporary issues on a hospitality business of your choice, and make recommendations to the business of choice. I go into more detail in a minute. Now, now your assignment brief, and please make sure you understand this properly. Okay, now select a segment of the hospitality industry of your choice. So for example, restaurants, hotels, pubs, bars, and so on. What I would suggest is very important. Don't just talk about hotels, because you've got budget hotels, you've got luxury hotels, you've got boutique hotels, you've got different segments, and different segments have different issues to deal with, especially when it comes to competitive advantage. So if you want to choose hotels or restaurants, please choose a specific area. So if you talk about hotels, talk about luxury hotels, for example, or budget hotels. So you don't just talk about hotels in general. Where you talk about restaurants, you've got fine dining, or you have fast food, or you have, casual dining. Again, choose either fine dining, choose where you work, your sector, although I don't want all of you to choose that. Or choose, I don't know, fast food outlets, things like that. So don't just choose restaurants or hotels as a general. Make sure within that you choose a certain subsector. If it's not clear, please ask. Please check with me if it's okay. Now, what you need to discuss then is, how does the sector of industry that you have chosen fit in with the rest of the hospitality industry? So talk about, where does it sit? How important is it? What is its size and scope? And how has it changed and evolved over the last 30 years? So if you talk about boutique hotels weren't around 30 years ago. Yeah, but tell me that, and tell me where it started, when it started, and how it has changed up to now. How big is the sector? How important is it to the overall hospitality, or also to the tourism industry in the UK? So come up with figures there. Also, maybe just briefly talk about the industry, well, not maybe, but you definitely have to talk about the hospitality industry in general first in the UK, and then go down to your sector. And then what you're obviously going to do is you talk about the pastel factors that affected the industry in the past 10 years. Don't go any further back than that. What are the passive factors that are currently affecting the industry? So what's going on at the moment? And what are the factors that will be affecting your certain industry and your business within the next 10 years? So what is happening in the future? And then how has your business shown competitive advantage? So if you talk about luxury hotels, what have they done? If you talk about fine dining, what has your business, what have they done to show this competitive advantage? What I want you to do as well, because you need to use theories, please, before you talk about the pastel factors, introduce to me what pastel means. Give a definition. What does competitive advantage mean? Give a definition. And make sure you reference it and explain it, because you need to make sure that the reader understands what you are talking about. Now, where appropriate, use example relates to specific companies and circumstances. So if you choose, let's say you choose a fast food restaurant and you say, McDonald's has done this, this and this, yeah, fine. If you use luxury hotels, you give an example for the Ritz or whoever, Savoy, whatever hotel you want to use as an example. Boutique hotels, again, just use an example. If you use pubs and bars, if you use a pub chain, yeah, again, use examples. And you may also wish to illustrate your report with recent articles and quotations. So Monica should have hopefully taught you by now how to do Harvard referencing, and you should apply your Harvard referencing as well. Remind yourself of the structure of the report and follow the handling guidelines. Okay, now the handling guidelines are here. Have a look at this. This is the minimum you have to use. If you want to use more, please do. Don't make every sentence a reference, because then you haven't told me anything. But if you want to, obviously you can use more than just 2 books, 2 journals, and 1 website. And then, as I said, you're allowed to go 10% over. You're allowed to go 150 words over. You're allowed to go 150 words under. Ideally, I don't want you to go under, because then you clearly haven't told me everything. And then here it tells you what the word can't include and what it doesn't include. And your bibliography is not included in the word count. And again, this is what I mark against. Now, okay, some tips on how to start your report. So choose the sector of the industry you want to research. Remember, there are 14. And tell me which one you're focusing on. Again, if you use hotels or restaurants, please don't just use hotels or restaurants. Use a subsector like luxury hotels, boutique hotels, budget hotels, whatever. And then restaurants, same. Don't use just restaurants. Use fine dining, fast food, whatever, family, whatever you want. But just don't use restaurants as a whole sector. You have to research this sector in great detail. All sources must be referenced in the Harvard style, and you have to put your bibliography together as you use them in your text. So you also have to reference them in text. So you have to do your in-text referencing, and as you use them in your text, you have to put your bibliography together appropriately in the Harvard style. Don't forget to talk about the hospitality industry in the UK in detail first, in general first. So how important is it? Talk about the people employed in the industry, and then narrow it down to the sector that you have chosen. The format is the front sheet, so it's the first page of your assignment brief, is the marking grid. You have to have a title page, a table of contents, and remember page numbers at the end of the table of contents. A table of contents without page numbers does not make any sense. Then on the next page you have your introduction. So you include the background on the hospitality industry, sorry, not the tourism industry, hospitality industry. And then your chosen sector of the industry, the size and scope. Your aim and your objectives for the report as well. Do not forget your aim and objectives. Just briefly, then the methodology, very briefly, how you went about the research. So what resources did you use? Doesn't have to be too much. Just tell me what you read, where you found it, and that. So it doesn't have to be too much. And then obviously you've got your findings. So you talk about the growth of the past 30 years. You then is, what are the pestle factors that affected the last 10 years, current pestle factors, and the future pestle factors, and then your competitive advantage. What I would say is, again, as I said, don't forget to introduce your pestle and your competitive advantage with a bit of theory, so that I, as the reader, know what you're talking about. Because when you write a report, you always have to assume your reader doesn't know what you're talking about. So if I have questions at the end of the day, I know you haven't covered everything. You know you haven't covered everything. Also, use different headings. So if I just go back, so have your historical overview over the past 30 years as one heading. Then have pestle factors the past 10 years as the next heading, current pestle factors as the next heading, future pestle factors as the next heading, and then competitive advantage as the next heading. It's just a guideline. At the end of the day, how you do it, as long as I understand how you do it, is fine. Then you have your conclusion. So how did you, again, go back to your aim and objectives. How have they been proved, completed, and changed? And make some recommendations. Yeah, so how can they embrace what has affected them what will affect them over the next 10 years? And what do they have to consider? So basically you look a bit at where are they now and what can they do in order to be successful over the next 10 years. Then you've got your bibliography. Please just use a separate page for your bibliography. Don't put your bibliography right under your recommendations. Don't forget to use the Harvard method and appendices if appropriate. Appendices, you only have supplementary information. Don't put anything that doesn't fit into the word count into your appendices, because I don't necessarily read the appendices. Okay, if you have any questions, first of all go back to the assessment and read through it, and then go back through this. If you still have questions, that's why I'm going to be there in tutorial. Make sure you're there. If you want me to read through your report, I do it once. I don't read through it in great detail, but tell me exactly what you want me to look at. And if you have questions, please ask those. So email me your report, your draft, and leave yourself enough time to do so. Because if you send it to me a day beforehand, then I'm not going to look at it. But as I said, tutorial, you definitely ask questions. Make sure you start early, and you shouldn't have a problem. Further reading, AG, again the course guide, information habit referencing, use your Cite Them Right book, and the next lesson is Contemporary Issues number 1, which is going to be climate change.